In 1893, a thick fog covered a small German town as 12-year-old Hans Wilsdorf stood silently by his parents' graves, grief etched on his face. At home, in a dimly lit room, he clutched a faded photograph of them, feeling the emptiness of his world. He watched helplessly as relatives sold off his parents' belongings and his family home was taken away, his young heart heavy with loss. At boarding school, Hans felt lonely and out of place, yearning for belonging. One day, a Swiss friend showed him the inner workings of a pocket watch. Fascinated, Hans traced the tiny gears and listened to their precise movements. Late at night, he read about watchmaking by candlelight, dreaming of creating watches that combined accuracy with beauty. By 1900, he arrived in Switzerland, suitcase in hand, determined to turn his dream into reality. In a watch factory, Hans meticulously inspected rows of timepieces, learning the value of precision. His dedication impressed his supervisors, and late into the night he worked alone, assembling watches and marveling at their perfect ticking. Each small success strengthened his ambition. As Hans traveled back, a thief stole the gold he carried, but he refused to let this setback break him. By 1903, he arrived in London, carrying only a suitcase and relentless determination. He studied watch sales, observing buyers' preferences, and realized that simplicity, precision, and durability mattered more than ornate designs. Late nights were spent sketching ideal watches and writing in his notebook. Make watches accurate, durable, elegant. He promised himself he would one day build his own brand. In 1905, Hans shared his business ideas with his brother-in-law, who, impressed by his vision, provided startup capital. Together, they laid the foundation for Wilsdorf Davis. In a small workshop, Hans assembled early watch prototypes, engraving WD on each case. He tested their precision and durability rigorously, ensuring every tick reflected perfection. In 1905 London, a young visionary named Hans Wilsdorf, along with his brother-in-law, founded a small workshop named Wilsdorf Davis. With passion and precision, Hans examined every gear and watch face by hand, ensuring perfection. On his work table lay sketches, labeled parts and designs for what he called the traveler's pocket model. Testing each piece through magnifying glasses and stopwatches, he sought unmatched accuracy. Their creation soon reached the hands of travelers, businessmen, and sailors. At busy train stations and ports, men proudly checked their elegant pocket watches stored in fine leather pouches. Advertisements across London walls read, "Portable pocket watch for every traveler." As glowing reviews filled newspapers, Hans's pride grew. His idea was working. Yet, he was never satisfied. Late at night, under a flickering lamp, Hans whispered to himself, "Pocket watches will vanish one day." He imagined a time when watches would be worn on the wrist. As pocket watches faded from his mind, they transformed into sleek wristwatches. Observing people in London markets, he noticed how women wore elegant bracelets and thought, why not make a watch as beautiful as jewelry? Soon his workshop glowed with gold and silver straps. Hans presented a bracelet watch to a stylish lady, and it gleamed like art on her wrist. Crowds gathered at store windows admiring this new innovation. Men, once hesitant, began wearing bracelet watches confidently, and soon newspapers declared, "Bracelet watches gain popularity across Britain." Hans knew the moment had come to give his creation a name. On a desk covered in papers, Rolco, Rollo, Rex, Rel, one word stood out, Rolex. It was short, elegant, and perfect for a watch dial. In 1908, Hans registered the trademark Rolex, marking a historic step forward. Craftsmen engraved Rolex on the first batch of wristwatches. The brand's golden lettering soon appeared in stores across London and Paris, symbolizing precision and prestige. From gentlemen in suits to elegant couples at grand ballrooms, everyone desired a Rolex. Its flawless ticking, even under raindrops, proved its durability and class. By the 1910s, Rolex became a symbol of modern elegance. Hans, holding a Rolex in his hand, smiled proudly. His dream had become a legend. The scene shifted back a century to 1910 London. In his small workshop, Hans Wilsdorf studied tiny gears under a magnifying glass, the sound of ticking filling the air. Late at night, by the dim glow of a lamp, he pored over horology books and complex schematics. He traveled across Europe, Switzerland, Germany, France, meeting master watchmakers. gathering knowledge to perfect his design. On a large blueprint, he sketched the 15-line caliber 200, a movement that would redefine accuracy. Soon, in Switzerland, the official chronometer testing institute rigorously examined his new creation. Precision instruments recorded its flawless timekeeping. Finally, a certificate was stamped, chronometer certified. Hans held it proudly, smiling. Rolex had just produced the world's most accurate wristwatch. Newspapers across Europe celebrated the breakthrough. By 1912, Rolex exports spread across London, Paris, Geneva, and Berlin. Inside bustling factories, skilled workers assembled watches, while elegant boutiques displayed gleaming Rolex cases. Hans stood proudly with his 60-member team, his dream rapidly growing into an empire. Then came World War I. Newspapers screamed, "World War declared!" Hans watched in worry as the British government imposed a 33% export duty on watches. Shipments halted, stores closed, and losses piled up. But Hans refused to give in. Determined, he relocated Rolex to Geneva, Switzerland, crossing the Alps by train. Boxes labeled Rolex parts were unloaded as the new office opened. Rolex watch Kummer Liltid. Production restarted, stronger than ever. On the battlefield, British soldiers wore Rolex trench watches, luminous, durable, and reliable amid chaos. As dawn broke, a soldier saluted, the sunrise reflecting off his mud-stained Rolex. In the muddy trenches of World War I, British soldiers crouched under fire, their Rolex trench watches glowing faintly in the dark. The radium-painted hands guided them through chaos. Explosions reflected off the unbreakable glass as they synchronized attacks under dim lanterns. Far away, Hans Wilsdorf read letters from soldiers praising the reliability of their Rolex watches, small instruments of survival amid war. When the heroes returned, they proudly wore their Rolex wristwatches during victory parades, turning a soldier's tool into a symbol of honor. After the war, civilians admired these new wristwatches seen in newspapers and shop windows. The pocket watch, once a gentleman's pride, began to fade away. Hans watched sales soar, smiling to himself. I knew wristwatches would win the world, yet perfection had its flaws. Dust and water found their way into watch cases, jamming gears and fogging dials. Determined to fix it, Hans worked tirelessly, sketching sealed case blueprints and experimenting with screw threads and rubber rings under candlelight. In 1926, his persistence gave birth to a revolution, the Rolex Oyster, the world's first waterproof wristwatch. Its screw-down case and crown sealed the movement completely. Submerged underwater, it kept ticking flawlessly. Newspapers soon declared, Rolex introduces the world's first waterproof watch. A year later, swimmer Mercedes Gleitze wore the Rolex Oyster as she attempted to cross the English Channel. For over 10 hours, waves crashed around her, but the watch endured, still ticking when she emerged from the freezing waters. The headlines read, "The Rolex Oyster survives the Channel swim." Hans turned this triumph into genius marketing. In luxury stores, the Rolex Oyster was displayed inside fish tanks filled with goldfish, a live proof of waterproof perfection. Crowds gathered, amazed. Advertisements featuring Mercedes Gleitze spread worldwide, making Rolex a household name. By 1931, Hans unveiled another breakthrough, the perpetual rotor, a self-winding mechanism powered by wrist motion. No more manual winding, movement itself kept the watch alive. This innovation birthed the Rolex Oyster Perpetual. No winding, no water, no limits. As light streamed through his office window, Hans gazed at the ticking watch on his desk. The camera pulled back slowly, golden light glinting off the dial as words appeared. Rolex, a legacy that never stops. In 1939, as smoke rose over war-torn Europe, Rolex factories fell silent. Inside his Swiss office, Hans Wilsdorf read grim headlines, his face lit only by lamplight. Supply chains collapsed, workers packed unfinished watches, and the world plunged into chaos. In 1944, Hans sat alone by a candle, holding his late wife's photo, grief heavy, but resolve unbroken. Tightening his tie, he whispered, "We must rebuild." By 1945, Rolex celebrated 40 years of excellence. Amid banners and cheers, Hans unveiled a new innovation, the Rolex Datejust, the first wristwatch to display both time and date. Yet when customers struggled to read the small date window, inspiration struck. A droplet on the glass magnified the number. Soon, newspaper ads proudly read, "Now, see time and date clearly. The Rolex Datejust." Businessmen and ladies alike embraced the elegance of progress. In 1953, the spirit of adventure soared. As climbers conquered Mount Everest, their Rolex explorers ticked faithfully through snow and storm. The tagline echoed, "Built for those who conquer heights." 2 years later, Rolex looked to the skies. In 1955, pilots navigating between London and New York relied on the GMT Master, its red and blue bezel tracking 2 time zones. For those who live between time zones, the challenges deepened. Literally, in 1960, Rolex engineers built the Deep Sea Special, a colossal watch strapped to a submarine descending into the ocean's deepest trench. When it resurfaced, still ticking, Rolex had reached the depths of human exploration. That same year, an aging Hans Wilsdorf sat quietly at his desk, gazing at his Oyster perpetual. As time passed softly, Rolex watches through decades appeared, ticking together, fading into golden light. From the depths of the ocean to the top of the world. Rolex, a legacy that never stops.